Hi, I'm Ben Stanhope.
And I'm Zach. No name.
And if you want to know his name, then you just have to go back and listen to all our other episodes. That's our way of getting you to listen to us. So yes, we're back. I don't know which order. We have like a couple of podcasts recorded that we haven't released, at least one other one. So I'm not sure which order these are coming out in, but for whatever the case is, we have just gotten back from a long break because we had school, and it really got Zach and I.
Final exams.
Yeah, it really sucked, and we had to kind of just dig our head down and grind. But we're back now, and to celebrate our return, we are venturing out into
Oscars.
the Oscar land, the Oscar desert, to watch Nomadland.
Who did Oscar pick this year?
Nomadland, they did. The
Chloe...
best picture, yeah, Chloe Zhao, right?
Yes, I never knew how to pronounce her last name.
Well, I said it really confidently, but I could have been wrong. So I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Chloe. I'll just call you by your first name, just in case. So this movie was released last year in 2020, and it grossed $6.5 million to a $5 million budget. So the perfect range to win an Oscar. And also, I'm going to be eating popcorn, so I'm hungry. The Rotten Tomatoes score is 94%. Zach, what would you say about this movie?
I don't know. I really don't. The Nomad. This movie made me yes Madland. No,
Yes.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Yes,
Right off the bat, it was okay. For me, it was okay. I'm not a big fan of the Oscars, so maybe that's just me.
Yeah. So if we go into the Botch Watcher top notch, off of Zach's lamest phrase so far in the history of the movie vault, which really makes you wonder about this movie, because it's like it's not a bad movie, but it's not top notch, I wouldn't say.
Honestly, you can botch it.
You can botch it for Zach. I honestly kind of agree. Like, I feel like this movie is not necessary to watch.
Yeah.
Which is really weird.
What did I take away from it?
It won an Oscar, but like if you're not somebody who likes these kind of movies, then like it doesn't feel important to cinematic history. It doesn't feel like there's any reason to like actually watch, like, unless you know you like Oscar style movies, then obviously, watch it.
But it's just I didn't even take anything out of the experience.
I got some things out of it, but I think
maybe you're just smarter than me.
I kind of want to rewatch it because I feel like there's a few things that like I wasn't as immersed in the experience as I needed to be. I don't really have any quotes from this movie because there's not really a lot to quote. But the funniest scene was when Dave, so the one of the characters, his name is Dave. He just like drops this box of glass trying to help out Fern, who's the main character, who's the nomad, and that was just really funny because he was like, I don't know, she just got so upset about, and it felt like she was mad at Dave the whole rest of the movie because he broke her plates or something.
She didn't want to cheat on her dead husband.
Yes. So now that gets us into the plot of this movie. So this movie is pretty easy to explain because it's just about this lady named Fern who works temporary jobs mainly. I believe she's somewhere up north. It seems like it's Minnesota, but it could be, really anywhere. It's in. She lost her job in Empire, Nevada, and so she takes a seasonal job working at the Amazon Fulfillment Center. And basically, she ends up driving to Arizona to meet at these desert rendezvous arranged by this guy named Bob Wells, who helps nomads. So she lives in a van. He helps them, kind of organize their lives and find temporary employment and things. And so she works at like different places. She works at a campground at the Badlands National Park. She ends up working at Wall Drug, and then she works at like a different processing plant. And finally, she has to go move back with her sister because her van breaks down, and she doesn't want to do this. She has a really hard time wanting getting help from other people.
Remind you of someone?
She doesn't feel like she needs
Ben.
She doesn't feel like she needs people to help her. She just feels like she needs to just kind of work harder and get it figured out. But but her sister can't convince her to stay, but eventually she goes to stay with Dave, she has been very resistant to Dave. Dave has been like really interested in pursuing her,
And he's a
the
sweet
whole
guy.
movie.
Yeah.
And he's a nice guy, and he helped get her the job at Wall Drug. But eventually she goes and visits his family, which is just really sweet. But she ends up leaving and journeying down to the ocean and looking at some scenery. And then she goes back to her old house where she lived with her husband, and she looks at the backyard, and then the movie ends. So
What did you take away from it, Ben?
Well, the thing about this movie is it's not about the story. It's about what you learn along the way.
What did you learn?
I'm just kidding. No, well, it's about how Fern has to, kind of realize that, like she's so lost in the past that she's kind of living her life in like a survival mode. So she's thinking about her husband who's dead, which is why she's very resistant to Dave, because she doesn't want to move on from her husband, and she's thinking about like the recession hit, so that's kind of part of why she can't live in the way that she used to. But she also doesn't want to be dependent on people. Like she doesn't see the concept of like family helping you out or like being close to family as being something that she wants to, because she just feels like it makes her seem weak, I think. And so the whole movie is sort of a process of her like realizing these things. But I'm not sure what the implications are for the end of the movie in terms of what she actually does as she discovers like these things about herself. And it's the broader themes are kind of about like, okay, what happens when you live your life and you're 65 and you're not really sure like what you did all that work for earlier in your life.
My favorite storyline though was that older woman that she talked to.
Oh yeah, we kind of forgot about that part.
She she talks to her. Fern talks to this older woman that is another nomad, and this woman she's been doing it for a long time. She found out she had cancer or something like that, and she only had a few months to live. So she wants to go take a couple more trips, like this one last trip-ish, like to visit a couple more different places before she dies to, just experience life. And, I mean, it's good enough. Like, I like that storyline a lot. The old woman, I was very sad because she goes, one of the lines she was like was, I hope one day my friends will throw a rock in the fire and talk about me, or something like that. And then at the end of the movie, they do that.
Yeah.
So,
at first, you're kind of like, oh, I doubt anybody will do that. But then when they actually do it, you're like, oh, like I guess there are, like this is like her legacy. Like a lot of people try to think about what legacy they will leave, and this is her way of showing that she made some sort of impact on the earth, that somebody would want to like remember her in this fashion, which I think is an interesting concept, but it kind of is empty, which is kind of how I felt about the whole movie. Which it was that there was this overwhelming hopelessness that ran throughout the film, and it wasn't resolved. So the movie is kind of bathed in hopelessness. And
but I'm not sure if that's what if Chloe was trying to portray.
No, because I think she's trying to show that you can live a fulfilling life in the way that the nomads are living, which I think you can. Like a lot of them became disenfranchised with the way that society normally works, in like the way that you get a job and you get money and you live in the same place and you kind of just live like that for your whole life. And they'd become disenfranchised with this because of the economy and whatnot. And I think she's trying to show like, okay, you can actually find joy in this lifestyle, which I agree with that you can, because I think like with consumeristic, American society, regardless of your thoughts of capitalism, I think that you can, like everyone can sort of agree that like when consumerism drives people, it doesn't lead to happiness, because you're always either unhappy that you don't have enough, like you could always have more, or you have so much and then you end up at the end of your life realizing that you had all this stuff and you really didn't do anything, of any value other than, work and get stuff.
I feel like the American system too is more of like it's very visible the ways that people are consumed. I feel like compared to other countries, whereas other countries they get like take for example, take China, right? So in China they make their students study 12 hours a day in high school, and they get like a 1 hour break or something like that for lunch and then dinner too. So that is them putting their effort in their life and devotion in interests into knowledge, right? In a pursuit of knowledge.
Right.
Which of course, to that extent, is also like overindulging, not overindulging, but like it's
Well, it is overindulging because it's putting one thing that you do in life and like taking it to the extreme.
yeah, whereas in America there's lots of different things to do and people are given the choice to do lots of these different things. So then when people like exploit these different areas and stuff like that, I'm trying to find a way to phrase it, but like when people kind of go too far, you know, like you said consumerism, if someone buys way too many things and way more than they need, then it's more visible than it is in another country where everybody's kind of doing, other countries, some, not all, that are doing exactly, everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's indulging in the same thing. Whereas in America, you can see everybody's indulging in different things, so then you can compare each other and see, and it becomes more commonly known by one another.
And other countries are also very consumeristic. They just don't necessarily have the same resources to like show off kind of what they've done through their hard work. Because actually I read a book that was about the drug trade from Mexico, and a lot of the drug trade in Mexico is actually driven by this idea of consumerism. And obviously it is interesting that from a more impoverished areas of Mexico, they never use the drugs that they're selling, and they try not to think about the idea that these drugs are being used in America. But in America, people are more well off, and then they end up being the ones who are buying the drugs because they need because they have stuff. And it's not like everyone who has the stuff is necessarily like wealthy or anything like that. But some of these kids are like suburban rich kids who end up on opioids and heroin and stuff because they are given so many things that they need like a drug to like be the new exciting thing to get obsessed over. And then and then in Mexico they're trying to, you know, work hard. And this is obviously a small percentage of people from Mexico. I'm not saying that this is like everyone, but it is no wonder that like immigrant workers work harder because they're motivated to do better. And it's not, and in some respects that is a good thing, because if you become complacent, then of course you're going to get outworked by the people who want to be there and they want to work hard and provide for their families. But there's always a level that you can take it too far, like the drug trade or something, that it's like, okay, now you're doing something that's good, working hard, and and then you're doing something bad with it, and then you can come to America and be like, you're blessed with all of these things, and then you can just not be thankful for those blessings, or you realize that those blessings or that things in general aren't enough to fulfill you, and then you search for the wrong things like drugs. So I don't know what the overall point is, because the Nomads, this is kind of a tangent, because how it all circles back to the Nomads is the Nomads have kind of given up on the idea that they can make a lot of money. I think they're just trying to more survive and find a like meaning in life outside of like this consumeristic mentality. So they've realized that like the mentality of consumerism that every culture sort of deals with in a different way is not like, it's not ultimately fulfilling. So they're looking for like this open, like kind of free lifestyle that they can explore and like kind of work different jobs to just kind of get by and live in a way that's not consumeristic, but it's also sort of about survival, because she doesn't really have the resources to live another lifestyle exactly. So it's really interesting to see all those different like points kind of mixed together.
Yeah, there was a scene by who was their cult leader, quote unquote.
The cult leader, his name was like Bill or something.
Yeah, whatever.
No, his name was Bob Wells.
Yeah, so he had a line in the movie, or he was giving like a speech in the beginning, where he was talking about like the Nomads, how they take part in society, that they don't like technically deny it, like they still use money and spend money because they need to survive, but it doesn't mean that like they're living the same lives. So it's just, his speech was just kind of saying like they're still going to take part in life, like they're going to still buy and participate in consumerism technically, because they need to eat food, they need to buy a camper or they need to buy a new van or something like that. but it's just to get by. You know, it's not. They're
Yeah.
not doing it. They're not doing it indulgent, like to indulge or anything like that. So
Yeah, and there's a difference. I guess I should point out, like, there's a difference between trying to work hard and provide and have enough resources for yourself and your family, and being overindulgent and being consumeristic. Like, there's a like, it's not all the same mindset coming in from whoever, like whether it's immigrant workers or nomads or just in general, like, society that we know, or just general American society. Like, it is driven by consumerism to an extent because of how the American system is set up, kind of, but it's not all overindulgent, I wouldn't say. So it's, yeah, I don't exactly know where I'm going.
well,
with
it
all
depends
this,
on the person. So
yeah. So what I'm saying is that you can never generalize a group or any sort of, like,
even
it's
Americans,
all individual.
Americans seem to be the butt end of a lot of jokes, but even you can't generalize them because you have Bens, you know, those overindulgent people, and then you have Zachs, you know, just the perfectly normal human beings that
Zach
don't
never
overindulge.
No, Zach lives very minimalistically,
And they never buy any extra Reese's cups from the store or anything,
Yeah.
to satisfy the hunger for a
No,
little bit.
they refuse. Zach refuses to eat because it's overindulgent.
Yeah, I only plain rice and chicken fingers. That's
Plain
it.
rice and chicken fingers.
Yes, every day,
But not everyone got that much out of this movie, though, and certainly
including me, even though I just talked about it.
certainly not Ronan Nahar or Nahar. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Yeah, he writes for the Hindustan Times, and he said, "Nomadland is 21st century Oscar bait in its most shameless form. Almost as eye-rollingly obvious in its intention as some of those award-friendly period dramas that the Weinsteins used to produce a decade or two ago." Bringing the Weinsteins name into it obviously means that he was not impressed.
I'm sorry, Nahar. Nahar took it way more harsh than I did. I didn't hate this movie like him.
Yeah, I do get his point, though. Like, it's always hard, though, when people accuse things of being, like, Oscar bait, because I feel like there was sort of an interesting... Like, this was sort of an interesting and unique movie. Like, it's not like anything I've really ever watched.
Yeah, it's different. Like, they would just cut from scene to scene with no emotional impact.
Well, I've seen movies cut like that, but it's more like the idea of, like, traveling nomads. But it does kind of remind you of a documentary in a way, which I'm not sure whether that was what they were going for or not. It's like a documentary that has a main character, but there's no, like, you know how they cut in documentaries to, like, people talking? Like, there's none of that. So then it's just, like, the parts where...
Yeah, and I feel like it was their mics, too. Because, like, the way that the people were talking in it sounded like they weren't close. You know, like, where you watch a superhero movie and their voice is, like, very loud and you can hear it. And everybody can hear it.
That's
but
true, the sound mixing, yeah.
in this movie, like, you could tell when someone was kind of far away from wherever
That's
you're
true.
watching.
I think that's probably what reminded me of a documentary.
Yeah.
Is that style. But, you know, if you're going to get an RV and go be a traveler, you're probably going to need insurance for that RV.
Yes.
And where do we always get insurance from?
We get it from Hedman Anglet Agency.
At HAA, they are known for saving people money on auto, home, and business insurance. And probably RV insurance, too. But you just have to contact them at their number, 614-486-7300. That's 614-486-7300.
That's right. We rehearsed.
And they will make sure they get you fixed up with whatever they can for your nomad lifestyle. And if you do contact them, make sure to tell them that Ben and Zach sent you.
Yes.
And then you can be on your merry way out to Nevada and Arizona and wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
And live. Actually, it is interesting to think about, though. Like, this is like a popular trend now.
Millennials do it.
Movie was like 10 years it wasn't made 10 years ago. It was based in 10 years ago. But like now there's a lot of millennials who are like living van lifestyles, but it's like luxury van lifestyles versus like, so it's like people who have money but they just sell like their apartment and whatever, and then live in a van that's like pretty nice, like it has like a bathroom,
Like a party bus.
like they'll like renovate it. So I don't even know how they renovate these buses, because some of them are buses, some of them are vans. It just depends. And it's all about like living, you know, being able to travel. That's a huge millennial, like I think it's millennial. I think it's a huge millennial thing to like want to travel.
If I want to travel, I want a private jet, not a van.
Zach is so minimalistic that he wants a private jet.
Yeah. Everybody should get their own private jet. We have the resources, guys.
If we really thought about it, we would have the resources.
Do we have enough oil in the ground? Do we need to frack more? No comment.
Maybe. No. Okay, we're getting a little too political now. So we're going to do something a little bit different to test out some things. So we're thinking that our 10-point system, we're not going to say we're retiring it officially because we might get a lot of pushback. We don't really know.
It's just in timeout.
It's just we're giving it a little break because we feel like sometimes the numbers and that we try to pull in, the 1 to 10 for every section, kind of complicates things, and it makes it more about, trying to like put a finite number on something that's not really like you can't really, objectively put, which we've said many times, but we still tried to do it. And I feel like maybe it's just getting a little taxing on us and taxing on the listener. So we're just gonna kind of go through our 10 points, and we're just gonna talk through how it made us feel. It's a little like therapy session.
Okay. Can I be the psychiatrist and you'll be the child?
I'm the person that you're psychiatry. The child. Okay.
You'll
fine.
be the psychiatry.
The psychiatry. That's definitely what they call it. So our first section is sentiment. So this is definitely like, how did it make you feel?
And how much did this make you cry?
I didn't cry at all. Although there was one emotional scene where the guy Bob Wells is talking to Fern, and he talks about his son committing suicide, and I thought that was like the way the actor portrayed like the emotion made it feel really real. Like if you did go through that situation, you would feel all the emotion that the guy was talking about, where you're like not sure what the point of living on the planet is if this person that you love is not there, and you don't understand why they did it, and all these thoughts are going through your head. And then eventually he just decided that he needed to live in memory of his son. And those are the situations that are very difficult to go through in life, and it's nobody really has a good answer for why they happen. But
well, I didn't really have an emotional attachment to any part of this movie, not because I don't like those parts, but just in general.
Yeah, I don't know.
I couldn't connect with Fern.
I feel kind of the same way. Like this movie really wanted you to feel sentimentally attached, but it didn't really
put in the work.
Draw you in as much as maybe there's somebody who really can relate to Fern who's been through those situations, but Zach and I probably aren't those people.
No.
We'll be the first to admit that.
No. We were yes men.
We were
land.
Yes mad. Nomad, yes mad.
Yes.
Okay,
mads.
Whatever. So the message of this movie, we really kind of talked about this earlier, but I think the message is like is this sort of trying to find purpose in life, which actually makes it sound not that creative, because isn't that the point of like every single movie that I've ever watched?
Didn't Soul just come out?
Yeah, Soul came out, and I think it was better at trying to figure out purpose in life. It actually had like a conclusion, kind of.
Sort of. I mean,
like
better conclusion.
The idea of Soul was that you're supposed to live life to help other people in a general, like that's the general sense, like helping your neighbor, helping others around, like seeing the world outside of just yourself. Where this movie did feel a little bit inward focused.
Yeah, kind of like this movie. If I were to take away a lesson from this movie, it would be that society can't fulfill me, and even being alone can't fulfill me. Yeah. So what do I do?
Yeah. This movie just leaves you with more questions than it gives you answers. So it's just wallowing in that nothing that's tangible in the world, love, nothing like love from other humans, community, not lack of community,
even her own family.
Every direction you try to go will ultimately leave you feeling unfulfilled. So that just leaves you with a great feeling, audience. And that's but I think it's kind of a realistic feeling based on what I know about life, is that if you do try to any of these things that Fern tries to pursue to give her fulfillment in life ultimately fall short, and I would agree that would be the case. That like people are always going to leave you
No, Ben, vans can bring you purpose.
Yes. So, maybe and she never really explored, God, maybe,
Yeah, had to throw that in there. Yeah.
like which is really interesting because you think that she would be somebody who, as she's exploring nature, that I would have those kind of thoughts, but that was never portrayed.
Well, I always
Like-
thought
like,
that nomads would have that kind of spiritual side to them.
And that's the thing that's interesting is it feels like that's the natural. Like I'm not saying any specific religion necessarily, but the idea that she would be exploring what God and who God is and what the greater point of life is outside of just going through the motions of life and trying to survive. Because when you're at your point where you're at your weakest and you're at your lowest, which I'm not sure that she's at her lowest point necessarily in this movie, but that would be the moments that you're trying to figure out those questions, but it never really comes up, and it seems like that would be what would happen. So I don't know what
Yeah, because
would be a Chloe question.
She went for all these different things and never even considered that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's not like crazy to think that she would like she would become disenfranchised with God, because she could blame everything on, like, if God existed, just blame.
But the fact that it was
God.
nothing,
but
like that was
that
brought up.
nothing was brought up is what I think is the problem with the movie. Now, when it comes to the plot, we kind of talked about this, but I think to calling this a plot seems a little bit like ambitious. Like I think it's more of a flow.
Yeah.
That's not really a plot.
It's like a week, you know?
There is a little bit of full circle because it's like her year is cyclical. She starts at the Amazon factory. It ends at the Amazon factory. She starts by going to the camp and then she goes back to the camp. It's like a circle. So there is some sort, but the plot is not so rigidly defined as in other movies, which I think is fine for this movie. Like, it works out well.
No, this needed to happen at the exact moment then.
I don't know that there's really a climax to this movie either. Like, you know how there's normally in a story that it like builds up to a climax.
There was 3 different times.
There's not even a lot of tension necessarily, other than between like her and Dave, and it never really gets resolved. So that's what makes it different than other plots.
We were there was 3 times where we had to look and see how much longer there was because we didn't know when the climax was for a reference.
Yeah, that's true. I think this movie also felt like it was ending for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like there was 30 minutes of scenes that felt like ending scenes.
Because she went to Dave's house with his family and realized that he wasn't living the nomad life anymore to be a grandfather, which was another good scene, but it's just another perspective on it, you know? It's just because they have the ability to go back to society, and it looked like Dave was pretty happy not living the nomad life.
And it was interesting because she went back to her family, and maybe like she didn't have any kids in her that were in that family at that point. Like it wasn't like she was going to become a grandma or anything. So it was like she just had all these like she could have gone back to her family and said like, well, family is really important, so I just need to come back here. But she basically was like, no. But then she was talking to Dave, and she was like, you know, you need to go back to your family. So it's like she couldn't like take the advice that she was giving, basically. And I'm not saying it was necessarily the right move for her to go back to her family, because it felt like her family kind of didn't really understand her perspective either, and that it would have like clashed a lot. So I don't know, but yeah, the plot, you know, it was interesting the way that they did it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Character arcs, yeah, they weren't very good. I mean, I don't know.
It's just hers.
It's just hers, and maybe Dave, and then a few of the side characters had.
Yeah, Dave had one,
and then the older lady at the camp who died.
Yeah, but she was already at the end of hers.
She kind of told her arc, but it wasn't like you saw it happen. But Fern's arc is just it's not really an arc. It's more like the plot where it's just sort of a flow. It sort of ends sort of where it started, in that she doesn't really know. She goes back to her house and she's sort of like starting to let go of certain things that I think might be holding her back, but I guess you don't really know.
That's for Nomadland 2 to explore.
Yeah, we gotta have the sequel. What if there was a Nomadland trilogy?
And they cross over with the Matrix.
Yeah. That would be interesting. Okay, now here's one area that I think we can agree was pretty good. There was a lot of pretty good cinematography in this movie.
Yeah.
But it's hard for there not to be. Well, I think it's like the way it was shot was perfect, because there's a lot of shots of like people walking around, moving, and with like great landscape shots in the background because they have beautiful natural settings being out west. So that really did the movie wonders in terms of I get why people scenically. I wanted to say sonically, but that's not what I meant at all.
Sonic.
The scenes in this movie are quite nice. So I get why, people like, it's kind of visually pleasing. I think David pointed out that everything was set sort of overcast though for most of the movie. So there was sort of a color palette that was more like grays and greens and kind of, like darker colors, but still in nature. There's a lot of night scenes, a lot of shots of fire, a lot of shots of food and like different ways that they ate food, and like they would go to fairs, or they would be eating around a campfire, or they would be cooking on a portable stove. So there's a lot of interesting things in this movie. I feel like the cinematography was overall pretty good. I was pretty satisfied.
Yeah, because it makes you feel like the way that they were made. It's not even cinematography, but it's just like everything going on in the scene within the frame made it feel like you were there, kind of.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was very homely.
Yeah, it's just like this is real life. Like this is how things actually look. Like it doesn't look pretty, so this is how it actually looks.
Yeah, that would be what this movie has going for it, is that it feels pretty authentic to what the experience would be like. I think. There's no way I could actually know that, but it gives you a sense of that kind of like realness and authenticity that is hard for movies to actually portray, because movies tend to be like like trying even on purpose to not be like that, to be cinematic, where this movie felt more personal. As far as originality, it's hard to really say what this movie is, whether it's original or not, because in some ways it's like, yeah, I haven't seen movies about nomads, modern day nomads, really,
But there are a lot of movies with no exclamation point, like no thing that they're trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I think to say it's not trying to say anything is probably not entirely correct, but I get what you're like. It's not trying to preach at you. The point is not obvious.
Yeah.
And that's tends to be what these more artsy quote unquote movies are like, is that you have to do more exploring in your head to try to figure out what those scenes are getting at.
Us common folk don't have time for that.
Yeah. That's totally not why we started this podcast. We don't want to think about movies at all. We just want to watch them and give them numbers.
We want Happy Meal movies.
We want happy meal movies. What does Sean Chandler call them? Like popcorn movies or something like that.
Yeah, I forget. I know
Taco Bell movies. That's what he calls them. Yeah. I think somebody else calls them popcorn. But yeah, no, this movie is definitely not that. It's not the movie that you go to be wowed.
This is a filet mignon movie.
Although it's like a filet mignon that's like poor,
burnt, and you have to taste the inside to actually.
You have to taste like the gross parts. You have to like see the cow being slaughtered.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not exactly that bad. It's
it's
kind of interesting because it's like portraying a level of lacking, but it's not like suffering. Like
it depends on the viewer.
She has to go through inconveniences, but it never feels like she's like. She does have to go through some cold nights and some broken, car stuff, but she's not like in a huge amounts of pain ever. So it's really interesting to think about that. The acting, I think, is like pretty decent. It's like everybody plays their role pretty well.
First of all, that was a really good transition. Second of all, I agree. I think that this actor, because there wasn't a moment that I was like wondering who she was as an actor. The whole time she was the character. And I think the fact that I hadn't seen her in a movie before helped.
Well, you have. You've seen her in Fargo. But that was...
I saw the show, not the movie.
Oh, you never watched the movie Fargo?
No, yeah.
Okay, then you probably haven't. Did you watch 3 Billboards in Ebbing, Missouri?
No, that was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, so she was in that movie. But that is true. That's what... Frances McDormand is an actress who can sort of... She's not flashy. So she can just really just invest in being in the character. And she's a really good character actor, and I need to watch like some of the other movies she's in. She's married to one of the Coen brothers, so they do a lot of stuff together. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, and this was kind of her chance to like shine and get like the spotlight on her. for like a huge movie, which feels deserved because I think she's one of the more talented actors out there at this moment, you know. And then Bob Wells is a real person. It looks like
Bob Wells as Bob.
like Bob. Yeah, Bob Wells is like. So they had Bob Wells in the movies. He's a real YouTuber who talks about van dwelling and the nomadic lifestyle. So that makes me wonder how much of this was actually based on like real life.
He founded the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous.
Yeah. So that's actually kind of cool. That brings a new aspect in the movie that I didn't know. I was kind of wondering about that. Like I was kind of wondering what. And there's a lot of these people in this movie are not like actors who have their own Wikipedia pages, which makes me wonder how many of them are just sort of like
Random.
actual nomads maybe, or people who are like the people have the same names. Angela Reyes as Angela, Carl R. Hughes as Carl. So some of these people are real people, you know. So that's why it gives you the sense of authenticity that it has. So that gives me kind of respect for it in a way.
Is Dave? Look up Dave.
Dave is also a real person. It looks like somewhat they're using people's real name because Frances McDormand's name is Fern. And I don't think she is actually a nomad because I know the rest of her career. But
Yeah.
like they kept everyone's name being like the same, which is really interesting. It feels like a very specific choice. And that Chloe.
The Office does that.
Oh, you're right. The Office does do that.
Maybe they just got lazy though.
It could. Yeah, maybe this is a lack of creativity though. Who knows? The style was good. We mostly talked about that in cinematography. You know, good use of
Bland,
tone.
but in a good way.
Bland, but in the way that it needed to be. The score I did notice at times, and I think it added to the effect of the movie.
But most of the time it was silent.
That's true.
Like it was just talking or sound of like just background noise.
Or tequila.
Yeah,
Like,
true.
but tequila playing on a radio versus tequila being like played as like a true backing sound. So
that's why it sounded like a documentary. Yeah.
yeah, it's what it needs to be, but nothing more, nothing special. And then choreography is honestly like not really a thing in this movie, I would say, because everyone's like sort of older. They can't really do that much other than walk around.
What? Jackie Chan can do stuff still.
Okay, that's true. He can. But I'm making a generalization, which are bad. I shouldn't make generalizations.
Then generalize.
Generalize
Do it all
some
the
more.
time.
All people who are nomads. Okay, that's already starting a bad mood. So what would you, on a letter grade scale?
Letter grade. Wow, we're back in school.
We're
just
back
got
in
out.
school. Yeah, we're making a reference to finals week. What would you give this movie?
I'd give it a B.
A B.
Yeah.
I'll give it a B plus.
Okay.
So yeah, which gives us a B. Oh, I don't even know what in between. We can't average it out, guys.
A B.
I wanted to say a B.7.
We could.
It would be like an 87, which feels really high for us, because you grade things differently if you use a letter grade.
Then I give it an F.
Then
No,
you
I'm
give it
joking.
an
I'm
F.
joking.
No, if I was to rate this on our scale that we normally use, I would give it like a 67.
I give it a B on a curved scale.
B, yeah, that's where we're the scale, the letter grade scale definitely curves it.
Yeah.
So like it brings everything up,
Yeah.
like a true school.
So originally I gave it a 50, but now it curved up to a B. So good job. Your professor just saved your grade.
Yes. And now that brings us to Britta Moments with Britta.
Perry, wow, he's been working on that.
Yeah, I've been working on the old vocal cords.
On the old Vokes.
Yeah, yeah, the fact that this movie was kind of boring, I didn't like that much. But it's also
Do you think it was longer than it needed to be, maybe?
Maybe a little bit.
Like
I think
a half hour?
like maybe like 15 minutes too long.
Okay.
Like, because I think an hour and 48 is like pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
But like you could cut out a little bit, make an hour 33.
I liked the character of Fern, but this is Britta Moments. So I think a lot of the side characters could have been explored more, maybe.
Yeah, like you got little bits and pieces with them, but mainly then it would go back to Fern.
But
And that's just a reality of the traveling part, probably.
But I'm kind of asking for stuff that, like, I could nitpick all day, you know? It's just like, I don't really know what else I wanted out of this movie, maybe.
Yeah, like there's nothing that could have made this movie. There's nothing I don't think that this movie could have done that would have convinced me to rate it higher. You know, Even
Yeah.
if they would have cut it down, even if they would have, maybe explored the side characters more, like none of that would have really made it better. I
Yeah, the
don't
whole
think.
style of the movie was that it's just like following Fern and her journey, and it's like darker colors and like pretty not bland but like kind of, and also pretty quiet and just serene and hopeless and gloomy.
Yes.
And the only way to change that is to, like, the only way that I would make it better is to make it less of that, but then it would make it less of
They would
this
make it
movie.
a different movie, yeah.
Yeah, so
If
that's
you-
why I don't know what I want.
Yeah, so it's like me and Zach need to just make our own version of this movie differently and better.
Yes, Mad
I'm just
Man.
kidding. I don't actually think I could make a better version of this movie.
We could, Ben. We need to believe, bud.
We need to believe.
We need to do it one of these days, and then we'll become famous.
Yep.
And then we'll get another listener.
And people will actually respect us because we'll be actually making original content instead of
Yeah.
reacting to stuff that's already made.
Whoa, I like this. Whoa, I hate this. Let's get money.
Let's get money. Yeah. A stock market. I mean, Chloe Zhao, I still think you have to invest in her after winning an Oscar. You know?
I'd give her $54.
$54. That's pretty reasonable. I'd invest 1 Bitcoin.
That's a lot.
That's actually a lot. Okay, I'd invest 0.02 Bitcoin.
Okay, so $50.
I'm not sure that I would invest in Frances McDormand probably a little bit too, but she's probably more at the tail end of her career realistically. And
We're predicting.
we're
This movie
predicting-
just came out, and we're predicting that.
I mean, I don't know. She's had a very long and successful career, so I'm just saying, like, she's just at the tail end more
Yeah.
of her life at this
Same
point.
thing with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Samuel L. Jackson was in this movie, that probably would have been what made it better, to be honest.
He just comes in. I'm a nomad, fool.
The thing is, I don't know that Samuel L. Jackson could be in this kind of movie.
No, he couldn't.
He couldn't because he couldn't play authentically enough because he's a true actor. Like he brings so much charisma that he would just overwhelm this movie.
You need actors that don't add to the scene.
Probably most of these people weren't real actors because that's the people that you need for this movie.
Yeah. You need Disney Channel actors.
Yeah, you need those people. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Our conclusion on this movie is that like Zach summed it up the best. It's gloomy, hopeless, and it's not boring, but it's certainly not the most engaging thing you'll ever watch. I think you can get really immersed in the world this is definitely a movie that if you watched it by yourself and you could really get in the zone of the movie, you probably enjoy it a little bit more.
But if you're watching it with friends and they're making fun of it, then you can't really get into
and
it
it's
as
not
much.
it's not a good movie to make fun of either because there are some parts that you can make fun of, not really because they're bad, just because you can just make a joke, but it's not like that. Like, there's so much better movies that you could do with that. Like, this movie is like serious, so I don't know. If you're going into it trying to make fun of it, pick a different movie because it's just not worth your time.
Pick on a movie your own size.
Yeah. This movie's good. This movie's high quality because the Academy said so.
Yeah, we believe them.
We believe that the Academy Awards is the signifier of any good movie.
And Rotten Tomatoes.
And Rotten Tomatoes.
And IMDb.
Don't make any decisions for yourself. Only believe that which is told to you.
Rotten Tomatoes
That's what we
knows
learned.
the truth.
So our next movie is, I am really excited if we end up doing the next movie that I hope we end up doing. But if not, we might not.
Just say what it is and it'll happen.
Okay, so I think we're gonna do Fight Club next.
Oh.
If we don't do Fight Club next, don't come for my throat. And then Casino Royale is the other episode that I kind of referenced at the start that might have come out before or might be coming out after this.
Who knows?
Who knows?
It's a roulette like at a casino.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of crazy things happening over at the Movie Vault. And we're glad to be back, but we're a little tired because we had a long day, but we're glad to be back.
Yep, it's been a long day.
Yeah. So I guess it's time to close the vault.
Wow, I haven't done it in a while.
But plug our Instagram at the Movie Vault Pod and our Twitter at Movie Vault Pod and our email themovievaultpod@gmail.com. And now we can close the vault.
Okay, let me think.
Zach needs some time to process.
No, that was my closing.
Oh, wait.